Hi, how are you? I am Ruth and I will be with you for this week's episode of Bookkeeping Essentials. Now that you all have a background knowledge in the history of bookkeeping, let's find out how bookkeeping was done in the past. Did you know? Bookkeepers emerged when people used the barter system and needed to keep records of the agreements made with regard to transactions of goods and services. The earliest accounting records was dated 7,000 years ago. Ledgers during that time were like narratives with the description and date of each transaction. Of course, bookkeeping was much more difficult in the ancient times and in the present, mainly because of the non-existence of modern technology back then. For your information, early records of bookkeeping from the first nations of Babylon, Assyria, and Egypt were found in clay tablets, which varied in sizes. Several tablets did not have dates, which were concluded to be rough memoranda. The more significant transactions are then recopied on bigger tablets with great care and more elaborated details. Transactions involve livestock, crops, and animals. Here is an example of papyrus ledger during ancient times. Let's now proceed to double entry bookkeeping. This method emerged when medieval Europe started to move to a monetary economy in the 13th century. It is when debit and credit were used for each transaction to monitor transactions that were financed by bank loans. Luca Pacioli even published a book titled Summa di Arithmetica, Geometria, Proportioni et Proportionalita, which also covered double-entry bookkeeping in the 15th century and was the first one to do so. As this book gained fame, the method of double entry was introduced in Italy. Meanwhile, in India, Chanakya, who was a philosopher and an economist, wrote Arthashastra during the Mauryan Empire, which contained pieces of advice on how to record books of accounts. In addition, in colonial America, bookkeepers used to record transactions in a waste book because original books would go into trash when data finds its way to the original ledger. By the 19th century, modern accounting methods that we are familiar with now took hold as the accounting field started to be professionalized. Indeed, bookkeeping back then was more complicated and more difficult. Thank God for technology. To know more about bookkeeping in the present, stay tuned for our third episode next week. Thanks for watching!